All right, and we are live. Welcome, Ollie. You have your 5 questions lined up,
Yeah, I have.
and you're sitting in your home in Sweden,
Yeah, in Stockholm.
Stockholm.
It's called High Valley, actually.
Cool. I am not going to try to pronounce that either. So we've got
Okay.
5 questions coming from outside Stockholm. So let's have some fun.
Yeah.
So what's your first question? What's the most pressing, most exciting question you got going on?
Right now, it is. What is the difference between working with the dominant negative emotions and the abundance mindset? And what is the difference, and how do they collaborate?
Yeah. So the difference between a dominant negative emotion and having an abundant mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I see those kind of as two different things, but they kind of relate. So a dominant negative emotion is basically an emotion that we continue to practice, which I would say for most people is their dominant source of resistance. So most people carry 1 to 3 what I call dominant negative emotions. So for most people, not good enough is a very common one. Feeling stuck or powerless is a very common one. And it's typically rooted in childhood. And the way you identify those dominant negative emotions is by looking at patterns of circumstance, past and present. So if you look at all of your past relationships and you look at the negative emotion that presents itself in all of these relationships, and it's always the emotion of them making you feel not good enough. And then you look at other circumstances, maybe your bosses always make you feel like you're not good enough. And then you trace it back to childhood, and you had a parent that was very judgmental and criticizing that always made you feel like you were never good enough. So when you notice that you have a pattern like that, those are what I call dominant negative emotions. Most people have 1 to 3 of them. And those are the things that when you clear them, you have your most significant outer reality shifts. Now, in the context of the abundant mindset, well, your abundance is going to be a reflection of the emotions you feel, the thoughts that you practice, the perspectives that you carry. So if you are carrying a dominant negative emotion of not good enough, then that's going to impact your level of abundance. It's going to limit the abundance you let in based on your perception of not good enough, right? Or if you've got this strong belief of a dominant negative emotion of feeling stuck, then if you're practicing that vibration of stuckness all the time, then you're going to be capped in your level of abundance because reality has to continue to reflect back to you circumstances that reflect you feeling stuck.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So, yeah, it does. It opens up a lot.
Yeah. And does that match a specific circumstance or context that you've been reflecting on in your life?
Not, I've been feeling more emotionally free, but
Okay.
my mindset haven't really changed yet. So that's why I asked, if the mindset is something I have to practice with affirmations, or will it come with the work, with the emotions?
You don't ever have to boost the positive. So the biggest, well, I don't want to say the biggest mistake, but one of the common mistakes I see in people who practice the law of attraction is when they have a negative emotion, what they're doing is they try to boost the positive to compensate for the negative. So if they feel like they're not good enough, then they're going to do affirmations, they might do positive aspect lists, they might do focus wheels to boost the emotion of good enoughness to try to overcome the not good enough, right? And that's why people need to do that every day, is because they're not dealing with the not good enoughness. So vibrationally, they're always pushing against it, right? And that's why alignment is effort for most people, because every day they're always doing these morning practices and these daily exercises to compensate for that not good enough feeling. And the real path to that high and consistent alignment that you want for the big manifestations is by dealing with the not good enough. And when you really effectively deal and eliminate that not good enough perspective, then you no longer have to push against it, and it's not in your attraction point anymore, right? So naturally, your state of alignment becomes much, much less effort because you're no longer pushing against these negative emotions.
All right.
Make sense? So
Yeah.
you never have to boost the positive. It's about really eliminating the negative. And once you eliminate the negative, there's no longer a need for boosting because you're back up at your natural state.
So that leads me to the next question. Is it possible to eliminate the negative emotion, the dominant negative emotions completely?
Absolutely.
Like make things work?
Absolutely. And that's something else I hear all the time is, how do I, people come to me and they say, oh, I've had this negative emotion my entire life. I've worked with 20 people. Nobody can help me get rid of it. What's your take on that? And, you're in the collective, so you're familiar with what we call the belief tree process.
Yeah.
So what I explain to people is the way emotions work is every emotion is rooted in a perspective, right? So if you have an emotion of not good enough, then there's an underlying belief that's fueling that emotion. So the way you identify that perspective is you ask that question, what must I believe is true to feel that way? Or I feel that way because. And when you do that, the very first thing that pops in your head, that's a perspective behind the emotion, right? So foundationally, that's how emotions work. So when somebody's not clearing something, it's about understanding that if a perspective fuels that emotion, if you can identify and invalidate that perspective, the emotion has to go away. And that's a little bit of a simple example because most emotions, underneath it, there's almost like that tree structure of perspectives. So you might have 5 different perspectives that are fueling that emotion, right? So when an emotion is not clearing, it's not because it's part of your DNA. It's not because you're born with it. It's not because it's stuck onto you like a tattoo. It's just because there's another underlying perspective that you haven't identified that needs to be released. And once you identify all of the perspectives under that negative emotion, once you release all of those perspectives, then the negative emotion has to go away.
Okay. So for how long does it take?
And that depends on the person. So for me, when I was doing one-on-one work, most clients, I would work with them for 3 months, and 90% of those 3 months, week after week, was clearing work. So, somebody who's 20 is going to have a lot less baggage than somebody who might be 65, right?
Yeah.
And somebody who's very closed up and afraid to feel their emotions, it's going to take a lot more work than somebody who's open and free and okay being vulnerable. So everybody's different. Everybody's got a unique thumbprint of those emotions, but typically most people have those 1 to 3 dominant ones, and shifting those dominant ones are usually enough to create a significant impact on their physical reality.
Okay.
Awesome. Great question so far. What's your next one?
The next one is, what is the difference between my story and the quantum leap process? Is the quantum leap like a more explosive version of the story, or? So
for those of you guys who don't know what, what we call the quantum leap process is, it's about understanding that there's infinite parallel reality versions of you, all experiencing different things, all happening at the same time, right? So quantum leaping, or the quantum leap process, is identifying the version of you in the reality that you want to be experiencing, and then identifying how that version of you thinks, how that version of you feels, how that version of you acts. So it's literally about identifying the vibrational signature of that version of me, and then me then in turn practicing that vibrational signature here and now. And if you can practice that vibrational signature long enough, then your physical reality will begin to mold and transmute itself to map the vibrational signature you're practicing. So that's what we call the quantum leap in the collective, right?
Okay.
So telling a new story is another process where you're simply, a lot of people get stuck in telling their sob story, or telling the story about, this is the bad thing that happened to me. This is the struggle that I keep experiencing, right? A story of, I always get cheated on, or the story of, I can never make enough money, or the story of, I can barely get by. So people seem to seek comfort in these non-serving stories. But every time you tell that story, you're pre-paving your future reality with more of that story, right? So in the context of manifestation, what you want to do is A, you want to quantum leap to the version of you that has those things that you want. And B, I would start telling stories that reinforce that version of you that you want to be experiencing as well.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I got it.
Yeah. So again, they kind of go hand in hand. So quantum leaping, you're becoming that version of you, right?
Yeah.
You're feeling, even though reality doesn't reflect that version of you yet, you're still being that version of you as much as you possibly can. And at the same time, maybe tell stories that reflect that version that you're being as well.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. Great questions. What else you got lined up for me?
Yeah, I have using love versus like aggressiveness, because aggressiveness seems to work faster, and in the society today, being aggressive, it's like it works fast. But how can you use love instead, and how it's like applicable in what you teach, so to say?
Yeah, so when you say aggressiveness, do you mean like efforting and like hard work and like that, like
raising your voice, slamming in the what do you call it, table when you want something, when you
pushing everybody away and just going for it, right?
Yeah.
Versus love. So the way I see, true forward movement is always the end result of, first and foremost, vibrational movement forward. Okay? So anything that we experience, even people who it seems like they worked really hard to get to where they got, it's not the hard work that got them there. It's not the aggressiveness that got them there. It's always their vibration that got them there. But what got their vibration there was their belief in their hard work and their belief in their aggressiveness, right?
Yeah.
So at a foundational level, physical reality always has been and always will be a reflection of what we have going on in our attraction point. It's always a projection of our consciousness, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always a match to our vibration.
Yeah.
So if you believe in effort, then your effort's going to get you results. If you believe in your alignment's going to get you the results, right? And the old paradigm way of doing things is through the effort, right? Because we've been taught that effort and hard work is what's going to make you successful. So people's belief in effort and hard work is what makes them successful if they can be driven enough to put in as much effort and hard work that they think they need, right? New paradigm understanding and awareness is the fact that vibration and alignment exist. And to experience anything, it's simply a matter of lining up with it vibrationally, being in alignment, being in the receiving mode, being vibrationally productive, right? So as the collective members, as what we're doing is moving from that old paradigm into the new paradigm, it's about shedding these habits of this is how I need to work, this is how I need to effort to get there, and really shifting to the habit of being vibrationally productive, of learning to be in high and consistent alignment, and allowing that mechanism of synchronicity, the support provided by our inner beings and source, to fill in those gaps for us so that we can achieve things, not only bigger things, but things in a way that's much easier and more relaxing to us. Does that make sense? So I would say continue to be aggressive, but be aggressive with your vibration. Be aggressive with your alignment. And even the word aggressive is a little bit strong. I would say more, put that focus on alignment and vibration rather than using the word aggressive per se. But I think you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great questions. What's your last question? I want to just keep going. This is fun.
Pain from injuries. It's I think I read in your book there was a guy who had like some kind of injury in the shoulder or somewhere. Could that be cleared with the process we use?
Yeah, absolutely. So your physical body is also a reflection of your vibration, right? So, for example, in my experience, neck, shoulders is typically emotions of not good enough, stress, pressure, overwhelm. Lower back is typically feeling stuck, lack of control. Breast cancer, abandonment and lack of nurturing. So all of the physical body is mapped to mental emotional states. I've got a book here called Metaphysical Anatomy. It's got 700 medical conditions and the mental emotional root causes. And I've helped people with overcome a lot of chronic pain issues like IBS, stomach digestion issues. That's typically what I call walking on eggshell syndrome or anticipation fear. Autoimmune disease, fibromyalgia. They're very driven in mental emotional states. So the key to shifting a physical condition is, number one, identifying what that mental emotional root cause is that's triggering the condition in the first place. Okay. Number two, it's dealing with those mental emotional conditions. So doing the clearing work. So for example, if you've got stomach issues and IBS, well, the root cause of that is anticipation fear. So the first step is doing the clearing work to eliminate the fear, right? Once you do the clearing work and you eliminate the mental emotional root cause, the second step is focus work so that you're no longer giving attention to the problem. Because if you resolve, let's say you've got an elbow issue and you resolve the mental emotional root cause of your elbow issue, but every day you're waking up and you're telling the story, wow, my elbow hurts so much. It hurts all the time. Man, I've got this bad elbow. And you're continuing to tell that story, well, that condition's going to stick around, right? So when it comes to illness, you want to focus on health rather than focus on, unhealth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And for you, do you have like a specific shoulder issue?
Yeah, I have. It's the AC ligament. I torn it like many years ago, and when I train hard, I get like pain back in the shoulder.
Okay, and I'm just going to take a look in my book here and see if just for fun, let's just play. What does AC stand for again? Let's see if it's in the book.
Acromion ligament.
Okay, let me look up ligament, and maybe we'll just look up shoulder. See if a ligament is in here.
Yeah.
I don't see ligament, so let's look up shoulder specifically then. I know shoulder will be in here. Okay, so under shoulder it says left shoulder, right shoulder, shoulder blade, dislocated shoulder, left shoulder dislocated, right shoulder dislocated. So for you, would you just say it's left shoulder?
Yeah.
Or shoulder blade? So is it in your shoulder blade or is it more up above on your shoulder?
It's up above, like the back side of the shoulder.
Okay, so let's look up left shoulder and see what it says. And how long ago did that happen for you? When did you tear that muscle?
I think it was 10 years ago, maybe.
Okay, and can you remember one of the first things I ask somebody when they're dealing with the physical symptom is what was going on in your life maybe the few months prior to when that happened? So if you go all the way back, I know that's a long time ago, can you remember at that time in your life, were you going through something significant, something that might have been really hard on you emotionally or anything like that?
Yeah, I did. I kind of was running from myself because I was out partying a lot and I was training really, really hard just to get rid of that behavior.
Okay, so there was something you were pushing against emotionally there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'm going to read to you what it says for shoulder problems and you can tell me if it feels like it relates. Okay, So
Yeah.
again, and there's 2 full pages. I'll just read us some key points of the first paragraph. It says, and remember not just about right now, but back then how you felt.
Okay.
It says, you feel weighed down by responsibilities, yet still willing to take on more. Your value is measured by how much you do for others. You do not trust others will pull through for you or support. Instead, you prefer to support others as you're able to control the outcome of a task or responsibility. How does that sound?
Yeah. Nail it.
Pretty big on?
Exactly. Yeah.
So to me, that's a sign that you want to work on doing clearing work around the emotion of feeling responsible for other people.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
And then next time your shoulder acts up,
Yeah.
do a little bit of reflection on, okay, so in what way do I feel responsible for other people right now? And then see if you can let that go.
Yeah. All right.
Sound good?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for playing with me today, Ollie.
Unique.
Great set of questions.
Cool.
Awesome. Ciao for now.
Ciao.